Now that Ontario's vaccination rollout has expanded to children, there's still some clarity needed on whether or not kids need that parental consent in order to get that shot. So with that and so much more, joining me to talk about youth vaccinations, Associate Professor of Pediatrics at U of T, Dr. Anna Banerji. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
So I first want to begin with the consent because we've sort of heard a bit of mixed messaging depending on if it's at a mass clinic versus at a clinic that's a little bit smaller. Can you just clarify what is needed for someone who is, say, 12 years old that wants to get vaccinated?
Well, so we have the Provincial Health Consent Act, which basically says that if a child understands that they have the capacity to understand that what the vaccine's for, then that they can have consent without parental permission. Now, obviously, we want parents involved and they want to be part of it. Parents might be bringing the kids to the vaccination centers. So it's really important to try to get them on board. But technically, legally, a child that understands has the intellectual capacity to say, a general idea of what COVID is and that the vaccine prevents COVID can consent.
Okay, Dr. Banerji, I want to turn our attention now to schools. There have been a lot of conversations on whether or not kids can or should go back to in-person learning. What are your thoughts on that? Because there's the conversation around mental health, and then there is about COVID-19 and possible transmission. Where do you stand in that conversation?
Well, I think that the risk of COVID to children all throughout the year has been minimized. And you look at the numbers, there have been in Canada about 1,200 kids hospitalized, and that's a minimum because often the tests are not positive. You've had about 150 kids in the ICU and 12 deaths. That being said, the majority of kids have mild symptoms, and in many places, like for example Toronto, we have 65% of the adult population vaccinated. So it's really a fine balancing act, and we all know that kids, for the mental health, the best thing for them is to be at school. But it depends, and it really depends at what cost. Like in across the country, like in Manitoba and Alberta with the outbreaks, I wouldn't recommend it. In Ontario, I think it depends on where you live and what the rates of COVID are. I don't make those decisions, but if the rates of COVID are coming down and you have a lot of kids vaccinated, I think I read about 40% of kids between 16 and 17 or 18 are vaccinated, then it becomes much safer. So I think it really depends, and maybe it should be a regional decision.
And we've heard from Dr. David Williams from the province just saying yesterday that seems likely that it's going to be something regional because some public health units really reporting little to no cases. So we'll stay tuned for that announcement from the province. But there is also this conversation around whether or not teens should be vaccinated as a priority versus others who are high priority to get their second dose. Because there's been a lot of people saying, why not vaccinate for the second dose here before lower risk those who are younger? What do you think about that?
I think it should be two-pronged. I think we should be doing both. Right now, I think the most efficient way to have kids vaccinated are school-based programs where, for a school, you have the catchment region of the kids going to that school, middle schools, high schools, they know who the kids are. You have very soon call out, bring the kids in, maybe by age category or grade category, and you vaccinate them. And that way, if you can do that again just before school starts, then schools can be safe. But at the same time, we need to start getting the second dose of the vaccine in. So I would start at, a certain age. You'd say anyone above the age of 60, come in for your second dose, or the age of 50, and rapidly go down. I think we need to vaccinate again, the highest risk, the most vulnerable, and kids. I think it's been a terrible year for kids. And it's not that they get so sick, although kids can get sick. It's more, we want to vaccinate them to keep them safe in a congregate setting so that in September we don't repeat what happened this year.
Okay, some great information here, Dr. Anna Banerji. Thank you so much for joining today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
7:11 is your time right now. What is it? Oh, it's a Wednesday morning. Good morning, Dina and Sid. And hello to your dad, who's so cute.
Oh, thanks, Mel.